to Welcome Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for my May wrap-up. It is June 2nd, so I figured now was a good time to film my wrap-up for you guys. Now, I did start out with a book that I mostly read in April, so I reviewed it in April, but I read the last couple of pages in May, and that is When Elephants Dance by Tess Uriza Holth. I did do a dual review of this with another book, which I will talk about in a little bit. I like to talk about my books in order of when I read them. So, and actually, surprisingly, I don't have my last book in May. I was able to finish it on the last day of the month. I still have not published my review. I still have not written or published a review for it, but I will soon. But I will talk about that book last. So the first book after When Elephants Dance I decided to read something a little more lighthearted and fun, and that is an abridged version of The Tale of Genji. Now I do want to get the original full novel that's not abridged. I would probably would rather buy a more cheaper edition, so I might aim for that one on Thrift Books. Of course, I gotta see how much it is on Amazon. But anyway, this is a tale of this young bastard prince. His mom died when he was really young, so he was raised by his grandmother. And when he's old enough, the emperor decides to summon him to court, and he lives in court and is educated. He plays a musical instrument, he can sing, he likes poetry. And as he grows up, he starts to develop desires for women, and he flirts with a lot of women, and it's all about courtly love and his education in the court and everything. It's good. It's not an all-time favorite, but I still enjoyed it, and enjoyed enough that I want to read the whole story instead of just an abridged version. And Genji's definitely an intriguing character. He's not mean. He's not, but I do feel like the women he pursues, he takes for granted. And I do find it weird that he decided to take in this girl who reminded him of an old girlfriend and raise her, even though she has a father who decides to come claim her. But then he realizes Prince Genji took her, and there's only so much he can do. And I'm like, Genji, what makes you think you are being a better father to this little girl? I don't get that. But anyway, he does take her in and raises her and teaches her things. Tries to get her out of her shyness. Although I don't like how he goes about it, because he's like, girls are not supposed to be shy. Or you shouldn't be shy. We don't like that. It's like, she's scared. She's an orphan. You're still a stranger to her. I do like all the poetry. It's so beautiful, and I think it's cute how this is the way people communicate with each other when they want to declare their love for someone. I feel like because in the abridged version a lot of stuff was taken out. I want to explore, I would love for this, and I don't know if the original novel does this, but I wish there had been more exploration of his relationship with the 10-year-old girl he takes in, or she's 10 in the beginning. I wish we got a little bit more of that relationship. But anyway, it was really good, such a beautiful story. I'm glad I read it because it was a lot more lighthearted stories. So anyway, there's that. Okay, so after that, we have The Last Time I Saw Mother, which is the dual review, the other book in the dual review for When Elephants Dance. So I'm not going to say a lot. This is kind of more focused on mothers and daughters, and the relationship between mothers and daughters, and their bond and everything. And I put When Elephants Dance and this one together in a dual review because they both focus on World War II and that whole experience. But they have different approaches to World War II, like how it's told. And they also kind of have a story within the story format or structure where someone tells the story, is telling a story within the novel. But it was really good. I enjoyed it. if you want to know more, please check out my dual review for this book and When the Elephant Stands. So there is that. And actually, compared to the other ones, it is a little bit more. It is bittersweet story. It is very sad, but it's still lighthearted. It's not as lighthearted as The Tale of Genji, but it is lighthearted. It's not as intense as When the Elephant Stands. So I did decide to take a break and read a non-Filipino or non-Asian work, and that is The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. This is a young adult book about two brothers, Peter and Thomas, and they live in the kingdom. Their father is King Roland, their mom is Queen Sasha, and Sasha, when Thomas is very young, Sasha dies of being poisoned. And the king has a advisor, this magician, Randall Flagg. If you read any of Stephen King's works, like especially like The Stand, the Dark Tower series, you know who Randall Flagg is. So you know that's a big uh-oh. And so Randall Flagg first let me tell you, Peter and Thomas are very different people. They have very different personalities. Like, Peter is good, he's kind, he's a born leader. The people know he's meant to be king. He does he, even at a young age, before he even is sitting on the throne and taking his father's place, he is ready to be king. And just is ready, and he's good with everybody, and he's kind, and he's good. He's just good. And then you have Thomas, who is much more passive. He's very shy. He has his skills, but he kind of is hidden by the shadow of his brother. And he's very reserved and easily intimidating, and he's very skittish. So Randall Flagg kind of takes him under his wing, and, he's kind of able to intimidate Thomas. And he sees that he would rather have Thomas on the throne so he can puppeteer Thomas and control him, because he cannot control Peter or King Roland. So in Will and Foul Swoop, he arranges Roland's murder and makes it look like Peter did it, and putting Peter imprisoned in this tower, putting Thomas on the throne. So this, like I said, is a young adult book, so it's a very coming-of-age story about these two brothers, and it kind of becomes a bit of a heist story in the second half of the book, with Peter, who knows he's innocent, is trying to find a way to escape. And Thomas, being king, kind of liking the power and the respect, but then starting to realize that maybe he doesn't like it after all. And he ends up having a bit of a guilty conscience because he knows something about his father's murder. There's things that he knows that he's afraid to tell. And he also feels like, you also learn that he feels like he needs Randall Flagg to advise him, because, even though he's scared of Randall Flagg, absolutely terrified, Randall Flagg knows things and understands how to supposedly run a kingdom, so he feels like he needs Flagg. I feel like there could have been more world building and more character development with these characters, but I get that it's also a fairy tale story, so I'm sure that King was thinking it's a fairy tale, so I'm not going to do as much world building. And I feel like I said, I feel like we really didn't know we knew about Peter. We knew that he was a good person, he was ready to be king, he was innocent. We never questioned that. And that, I feel like, is kind of the problem, because he was too good. And you have Thomas, who I feel like is a more complex character, where he loves his brother, he loved his father, he loves his brother, but he also enjoys the attention and respect he's getting. So he's a lot more interesting of a character. I would have loved to see more of his development, which we did. We did get it. It's still a coming-of-age story for both the brothers, but I feel like we spent a lot more time getting to know Peter than we did Thomas. Now, there is a suggestion of romance, but it doesn't take over the plot. It's just something that King threw in there. It doesn't dominate the story. It's just this cute little suggested romance in the story that doesn't even come until later. But that's it. So if you are worried about, that, because a lot of YA novels do that, and this is considered a YA book, don't worry. Like, don't let that stop you. But with that being said, you can definitely tell this is like King was going for a different approach with the story, being for younger readers, with the writing, and there's a lot of stuff that he puts in his adult novels that would not be appropriate for younger readers. Like the scene that kind of disgusted me the most was probably the scene when Thomas is spying on his dad, and his dad is being obnoxious. He's drunk, and he's just being kind of gross and vulgar and you're seeing through Thomas's eyes. So that's the worst scene we might get in the book as far as like grossness and crassness. But it was really fun and very charming, and I like how, and another thing I enjoyed about this is that how King addresses the reader. Like, he's like, oh, this is kind of similar to what we have in the real world, in our modern world, but it's not the same. Or like, oh, you might have to remember this later. This is important, so keep this in mind for later. That kind of stuff. Or like, is this going to be important? Like, oh, wonder if they had chosen to do this instead, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. That kind of stuff. So I thought that was really fun and charming and cheeky of him to do that. But, again, I feel like he's kind of trying to set up like he's telling the story to someone. I do think it was really sweet that this was kind of a story that he wrote for his daughter, because, at the time she couldn't read a lot of his books, or it was maybe that, but also maybe she wasn't a horror reader. She's more of a fantasy reader, I guess. Maybe not, but anyway, so this was really fun. It's a little different than his usual stuff, but usual King stuff. I don't know, like, this is my second time filming this wrap up. When I first filmed it, I was saying, oh, if you want to start with King, read this, but I'm not sure, because this is different from his usual stuff. But anyway, so that is The Eyes of the Dragon. Okay, so back to, Filipino literature. So I also read Dusk by F. Sonil Jose. This is the first book in the Rosales saga. So our main character is Tak. He is a priest in training, and his former mentor, Padre Jose, has died recently, so a new young Spanish priest is coming to take over, and he is not like Istak. He doesn't think anything of him, and casts him out, sends him back home, where his family owns a farm, and he has to kind of take over the farm, but he just doesn't really fit in with that life. He's much more educated, and he feels unsettled, and meanwhile his brother brings home this woman, Dallin, whose husband has just died, and they take her in, and then she and Isaac fall in love. Now the family in their whole village finds out that the young priest has decided he doesn't like them living in their village anymore, so he decides to kick them out, cast them out from the village, and they have to find a new home. And the father of Istak's father decides to confront him about this, and he also wants his son back in the priesthood because, he wants his son to have a better life. And he accidentally in anger, kills the young priest. So the family is forced to leave after all, and Istak decides to stay behind. But quickly things go wrong, and Dallin rescues him, and they travel together while he is recovering. So this is, of course, a story about family and the bonds of family and the importance of your home and where you come from. But, it's also about, you're having faith and questioning your faith. Like, his relationship with Dallin is very sweet, very enduring. I love that she supports him no matter what. She takes care of him, and she helps him heal, and metaphorically as well as physically. and helps him rediscover his faith in God. But now I do wish they had explored more of his relationship with one of his brothers back. Because, it seemed like there were times when the brother and him could have had an antagonistic relationship, and they still did, but it wasn't as prominent in the story. Like, granted, the way it was set up is they couldn't really interact a lot. But still, like, in the beginning of the book, Back is the one who finds Dallin and wants to claim her as a wife, and he's mad at his brother, and he's like, just because you're all smart and stuff, I work hard. I was the one who found this woman and helped her, so I'm entitled to have her. Which made me kind of annoyed with the brother. But I do wish they had explored that more. I mean, they explored it in the sense through Isdak being worried about it and wanting to, because he was falling in love with Dallin and she with him. So I was kind of like, I wanted to see more of that. I mean, on the one hand, I was relieved when Back got distracted by another woman, but still, I wish there had done more with that. We got a little bit more, and there was other things that happened throughout that. Back and their other brother kind of blames Isdak for it, like thinks it's his fault that these things happened. So there was I feel like there was such potential for that relationship to to really develop and get complicated and messy, but still be entertaining at the same time. I think this was a good start. It's probably not going to be my favorite in the series. I have books 2 and 3 in a bind up that you guys have already seen. So I will look forward to continuing, and hopefully I will find a book in the series that is a favorite. Okay, so the last book I was able to squeeze in before the end of the month. Oh, I almost forgot. I did this with When Elephants Dance. I reviewed these 2 books together. Because they were both kind of focused on World War II. So that's why I did a dual review with these 2. With this one and When Elephants Dance. So please check that out. Okay, so the last book I was able to squeeze in before the end of the month, but the only reason is because I was almost done with the book anyway, so I was like, let me just finish this, because this is one of the many books that are 500 plus pages that I need to finish. And that is Umberto's Echoes, The Name of the Rose. This is a story that takes place in a church. It's set in the 1327. And a monk in this local abbey in an Italian village has just been murdered. So this friar, Brother Williams, has been called to the scene. He has a partner, this young man named Brother Adso. They decide to investigate, and they learn that there is a book that this priest who was murdered or might have committed suicide, that he had discovered this book, the sacred text, that might be dangerous to the church. So they're trying to figure out who is the person that would not want anything exposed in this book, and how were they murdered. And slowly, one by one, as they're trying to investigate this murder, different people get murdered. Other members of the abbey. And, so far it's a very intriguing story. It is a bit of a slower story. It's not like a thriller with its pacing. It's not very fast-paced. In fact, there's a lot of slower moments where characters are discussing things and philosophizing and trying to piece it all together. But there's also a religious politics storyline involved with the Pope in Rome, and so there's a lot of that being explored, and I really wish I knew the history, because I don't know a lot about this kind of stuff, and there was also a lot of Latin in the story as well that I wish I knew. Like, there was a time I wanted to study it briefly, but then my mom, my parents were like, that might be a little too hard for you. So I almost wish I knew about that stuff, but I still enjoyed the story and was engaged with it and with the plot and wanting to know what was going to happen and what they were going to learn and how they were going to figure it out and who was the one who committed the crimes and killing all these monks. So it kind of has a similar plot to a Dan Brown novel, but it's not in modern times, it's in the 1300s. And it's, again, not fast-paced, and it kind of explores more of the religion than the Dan Brown books do. Like, you're not just told the history, you're actually seeing history unfold in the story. But it's really good. You know, I wouldn't recommend this for book people who are thriller fans, even though there is a mystery in the story. I would more recommend people that like mysteries, but also like historical fiction and philosophy and discussing things and, you know, really diving deep into not just solving the mystery, but trying to, like, understand it and trying to understand the motivations and what goes on behind, you know, what is going on at the time that this, like, what is such a threat. But anyway, this was really good. I enjoyed this. Glad I read it. So those are all the books that I read in May. So I did start reading another Jose book, and that is Viajero, which translates to traveler. I haven't read very far into this book, so I don't have a lot to talk about with it, because I'm also reading Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. I started this a while back. Again, it was in a situation where I had the mass market, so I wanted to get the regular size paperback. So you have in this world, there's the Vestrit family, and they own a live ship, which is basically a ship that when members, at least 3 generations of family members die on the ship, that the ship will possess their souls. Their souls will become part of the ship and give it magic and fuel the ship. And our latest family member that is dying, the present generation, his daughter is supposed to Althea is supposed to be, she believes it's supposed to be her ship, but her brother-in-law wants the ship for himself. And Althea is, you know, trying to make sure she gets it. Even though she's a girl in this world, again, it falls the whole typical thing about you're a girl, you're not supposed to be a pirate, you're supposed to wear pretty dresses and sew or play an instrument or something, and all that. Althea is not about that life. She wants to sail the seas, and she appreciates the magic of the ships. And so there's the other plot is about Kenneth. He wants to be a pirate king, and he's trying to find something, I believe, and but people aren't too keen about being rolled over. And I do have some predictions that Althea and Kenneth are going to cross paths. They're going to have to work together for some reason. And I'm guessing, I could be wrong here, but my prediction is that there's going to be romance between the two of them. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. I could be wrong. They could just be really good friends. Eventually become friends, at least. But I feel like, as of the first book, they're just going to be reluctant allies. Because why would we get both stories if they're not going to come together later? I realize, like, I read fantasy a lot faster than I read any other genre. And probably, I guess I would classify horror in the same way with this, and maybe if I was more into science fiction. Although I don't know, with science fiction, I think I also read sci-fi. I might potentially read slow as well. But when it's historical or books that are considered classics, I think I tend to read those a little bit slower. I noticed them. Am I the only one who does that? Like, I wonder if there's other people who feel that way. Like, they feel like they read certain genres faster than other genres. So those are the books I'm currently reading right now. Now, my original plan was, and I'm kind of still going to go farther with this, I wanted to do June as a kind of seafaring month, reading books where characters are traveling by sea, like Viajero, the main character, Salvador de Raza. I think he's going to be taken in by a captain of a ship, and they're going to sail across, from the Philippine Islands to China and in Europe and all that. And then also I'm going to read English Passengers. It's about a group of people going on this ship, this English ship, and they all have secrets, I think. And originally I was going to read, Marco Polo Travels, but I decided to DNF that one because I wasn't feeling it. I thought it was kind of boring. And then Ship of Magic, obviously, ship on the ocean. But here's the thing. One of these books that I'm going to show you, you already have seen, and then I'm going to show you the book I got yesterday from Walmart. So, I was really inspired to kind of do part of me kind of wants to do a supernatural inspired summer. And because I bought Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I've read 2 Jay Kristoff books. The first 2 books in the I can't remember what the trilogy is called. The Girl Who Trains to Be an Assassin. I cannot remember what it's called. But anyway, I mean, I remember I thought his writing style was intriguing. But I never did continue. I did not read the last book in that trilogy, which I should have. I should just read the last book. Shouldn't have bought it and read it. But you guys know I bought this. It's a vampire book. It's basically in a world where it's dark all the time, and the vampires have taken over. And I'm just kind of slowly getting back into these kinds of stories. And I think it'd be kind of fun to read something that's not like a vampire that has romance, but it's not like moral girl falls in love with a vampire even though he could probably kill her, or at least drain her blood, or like turn her into a vampire or something. Like, we have so many vampire stories that are like that. In this one, it seems like we're not gonna it's not like we're gonna get just vampires. The main characters are all vampires, I'm guessing. But it still has a romance. When it comes to vampires, I'm very much in the middle, where I do still have the Twilight type stories. I mean, I love Buffy and Angel, although, I'm a Buffy fan, despite what happens in season 6, I don't like that. I wish they didn't have that part in there in season 6. It's always it is in the back of my mind, so I don't forget about it. I wish it wasn't there, but it is there. But I still like them. I still love Buffy. I mean, especially going by how the relationship turns out in season 7. That's when I first started watching the show. So that was my introduction to their relationship, season 7. When I started watching the show for the first time. But I like that kind of stuff, but I also like stuff like Salem's Lot, where the vampires are just monsters. But what I don't like is stories where the vampires are just animals. They're just 30 Days of Night with Josh Hartnett, where these people go to Alaska, and it's during a period in the year where it's dark all the time, so vampires show up and kill people. I don't like that. I mean, that's why I'm not a big zombie fan either, because I don't like the stories, although I enjoyed The Last of Us, but that's because it kind of focuses on this, on the 2, Ellie and I can't remember the guy, and their bond, their father-daughter bond that they've developed. I like how it focuses on that. That's why, so it's I'm wary. That's why I'm wary of God. What is that main zombie show that everyone loves? I cannot. It's on AMC. I don't remember. But anyway, maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. But that one zombie show that's on AMC The Walking Dead. That's what it's called. The Walking Dead. I'm not sure if I would like that, because there's a lot of focus on just killing the zombies, and the zombies have taken over. But then, a lot of people do say that it does focus on the characters and their relationships. So I don't know, maybe if I did decide to watch it, but it takes a lot to get me to watch something that I'm not, I have to nudge myself. There has to be something that I stumble on that makes me reconsider it. I won't consider anything if I bring it up, saying I'm not interested, and then explain why, and then someone is like, well, I can change your mind. Where, oh, they do, but it is like this, and they do this, and I think you'll like it. Once someone does that with me, I'm like, no, don't try to persuade me. I want to decide to get into it on my own, because I accidentally stumble on something that motivates me to get into it. Then I'll get into it. but not because you're telling me, oh, you should get into it, and it does do this, and oh, I think you'll like this. All some people do that. I'm like, nope, I won't do it. I don't care what you say, even though you're my best friend. It doesn't matter. Not getting, like, I like getting into things of my own free will because I want to get into it. And it's not like they're forcing me, but they're trying to persuade me to get into it, and I don't like that. Anyway, I only bring that up because it's supernatural, or I don't even know if we consider supernatural or not. Though that type of stuff I don't like. So when they do a similar thing with vampires, where they're just mindless monsters that will, just like savagely kill you, and they don't have a personality, they don't have human-like ability, they don't have human-like traits, they don't act human, they just act like animals, then yeah, I don't like that. To me, that's boring. I want vampires that are dangerous because they are humanoid in a way. They can act like humans. They can blend in with humanity, except they're very pale and have really sharp teeth. So anyway, you guys, so I bought this because it sounded really intriguing in the idea of vampires taking over, but it's not like we're focusing on the vampires and and they have personalities and stuff. So, but then I went to Walmart because I had to pick up some, cleaning. I usually get my, face wash and all that at Walmart, and like most of my toiletries I get at Walmart because it's cheaper. So we went there, and there is, you guys know, there is a small section. It's very small. Like Target has a bigger book section. Like that's why, which I'm glad. That's one of the things I appreciate about the Target, and I'm not happy that we're getting a Target because if I don't go to Books A Million, and go to Target, I know I could still potentially find a book at Target because there's a bigger selection. Like Walmart, there's no guarantee I'm gonna find one that will get me excited. Target has more selection, so there's more of a chance, and we are getting a Target, so I'm happy about that. But I did find a book, and this is by an author that I have not read anything from them yet, but I do have her debut book, and that is Olivia Blake. And One for My Enemy is the book of hers that I just bought. And this is about witches, which was always my first love. Witch stories were always my first, supernatural entity that I always loved. I was, I enjoyed vampires. I thought vampires were cool. I liked elves and fairies and all that. I thought they were cool too. And I actually almost bought, there was a fairy book there, I can't remember what it's called. But Hatching Moon or something. It was actually a pretty big book. It was bigger than this one. And I almost bought it, but then I was like, I'm kind of more interested in the witch book. So thankfully my mom had not finished shopping, so I was able to go back and switch out the books. Because I'm not gonna, buy two. Because like I said, I try to stick to a budget I've set for myself. And even though, yeah, I'm starting over again, I don't want to, I don't know how soon I'm going to go to the next opportunity to go to a bookstore, so. And, but this is about witches in modern day New York. I believe it's modern day. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about the, it doesn't have a time period or anything, so I'm thinking it's modern day, and it's these two witch families. You have the Antonova sisters and the Fedorov brothers, and I'm guessing they're Russian, going by their names. And I guess their mom is, I don't know if she is Baba Yaga or supplies stuff to Baba Yaga. I'm like, oh, okay, so their mom is supposedly Baba Yaga, and the dad for the brothers is a crime boss, And someone crosses a line, which I'm guessing maybe murder or something is going to happen. And, old grudges come out, and I'm guessing, like, one of the siblings falls in love with, one of the sisters falls in love with one of the boys or something. But yeah, it's been so long since I've, where most of my witch exposure has been Charmed reruns. And, in October watching Hocus Pocus. So I've been wanting to, get back into witches and everything and learn, read more books about witches because I do like them. And what I would love, there is one witch series that I read years ago in, like, probably middle school or early high school. I cannot remember what it's called, but this young girl, this young witch who doesn't know she's a witch, she lives in, like, California or somewhere. Her parents die, so she goes to live in a small New England town with her cousins, and then they end up being part of a coven. And there's, male witches that they have to... And it kind of seems like a young adult version of this story, a little bit. And I thought the concept was really cool, and I would love to. And I remember wanting to see it one day adapted. And this, like I said, it feels similar to the story with the siblings and everything. Like, that they're supposed to be enemies. And, but yeah, so I figured, I wanted to get this one instead of a fairy book and get back into witches. So, anyway, so it's because of these two books that all of a sudden I'm like, I want to do a supernatural summer where I read supernatural books. I don't know if I have enough. I might only have these two books, so then it really won't be much because, like, which would work out. But I should look at my shelves and I see if I have any of my other fantasy books are more like this. But probably not, because I kind of, for a long time, I stepped away from the supernatural world. I mean, I guess, what I could read? I might read the next, I do have, like, The Magicians, which I could read, and then I also have, I was tempted to say The Magicians and this next one for October, but I might go ahead and pick it up and just read book 2 in October of the Magician series. But I also have, Shadow at Night, which is the second book in the All Souls trilogy, it's not a trilogy anymore. So I have that, and there might be some other, I might have some that could pass as, like, supernatural, just supernatural, not, like, fantasy. Because to me, there's a difference between, like, you have the supernatural stories, and then you have the fantasy. Or fantasy, when I think fantasy, I think of epic worlds and and going to another place that's not our own, like an urban fantasy. And then you have supernatural, who are more like the urban fantasy, or I guess they'd be considered urban fantasy, where, like, you take place in the real world, but you're surrounded by magic. But it's not like there's not necessarily magical creatures, or there might be. But you're still in our world. Anyway, so I might do that. I might read these. Like, this is what happens whenever I come up with a plan too far ahead. Then all of a sudden, there might be a book that I buy that might change my mind and make me want to go in a different direction. That's why I try to plan themes, but it doesn't go well, because I end up getting sidetracked by other books that have nothing to do with the theme. Anyway, so that is my reading wrap up, and also my update about how I'm starting the next month. I don't know what I'm going to call this video. I guess a May wrap up for 2024, but like I said, I ended it with talking about books that I'm going to read in the future in June, so I don't know. I guess I could still call it May wrap up. Anyway, so I hope you guys like this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you haven't already and you'd like to see more of my videos, if you're interested enough in my channel to see more. And click the bell icon if you want to be notified when I upload videos. I'd love to know how your reading went in May. Are you happy with your reading in May? Did you read more or less than I did? what was your favorite book? What was my favorite book? I do not know. I really liked The Last Time I Saw Mother. Arsenic and Adobo was fun. The Eyes of the Dragon was really, fun too. Probably The Last Time I Saw Mother was probably the one I liked the best. It's probably my favorite. Which I'm always thinking, I'm always feeling, guilty that I'm, stepped away from fantasy, so I'm always trying to get back into fantasy because it was my first love. And I feel like I'm abandoning it a little bit. But anyway, I know that probably sounds stupid, but anyway, I hope you all are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye!